Hands up!
Good job.
He'll bite you.
Bodycam footage was just released from an officer-involved shooting involving the Greensboro Police Department in North Carolina. Now, this happened in November of last year, but following the investigation, the results were released in March, and although there was a pending civil lawsuit, the decision was made to actually indict the police officer on charges of manslaughter. So he was indicted. He was also fired. I pulled the civil lawsuit complaint so that I could see what the actual allegations were in the pending federal case. So I have the footage that was just released, and I also have the complaint from the civil lawsuit. Now, this is what happened. On the night of November 19th, 2021, Officer Matthew Hamilton and other Greensboro police officers showed up at this house. As far as I can tell, the call was that there was an unknown male trying to enter this residence. Apparently, the person who ended up getting shot that night, the unknown male, his name was Joseph Lopez. Best as I can tell, and it's not mentioned in the lawsuit, he apparently didn't reside at this house. He ended up in, I don't know if it was a garage or a shed, some sort of outbuilding at the house. He's basically cornered there. The police officer, Matthew Hamilton, is outside. He has a body cam on. He also has his canine. And the footage shows what happened, but this is from the plaintiff's lawyer in the case. It says that they were called because there was a report that Joseph Lopez had been trying to enter this house. So Officer Hamilton and other officers located Joseph inside a small room that was located at the rear of a two-car garage at the residence. So not clear to me whether this guy maybe had mental issues, whether he was there robbing the place, or whether he had some reasonable explanation for being there. And I think the point is what I'll get to is that it doesn't necessarily matter when it comes to the choice to use force or not. It may play into it, but I'll continue. So Hamilton was a police dog handler. He opened the door of the room with his dog on a leash. And as he stood next to the open door, Hamilton said, "Greensboro Police, if you're in there, make yourself known." To which Joseph replied, "Yes, I'm here." Hamilton then said, "Come out with your hands up or I'll send my dog in there and he'll bite you." Joseph responded in a non-threatening manner that he would come out when it was, quote, safe to do so. Shortly thereafter, Defendant Hamilton then released his police dog into the room where Joseph was sitting. The dog attacked Joseph, who yelled out in distress. Seconds later, and you'll see with the footage that it happened very quickly, Hamilton walked through the door, and you can see that it was very dark, pulled his handgun from his holster, stepped into the room, and without saying anything, shot Joseph once square in the face with his service handgun. Joseph died at the scene as a result of the hollow point gunshot wound. Immediately after fatally shooting Joseph square in the face, the defendant Hamilton exclaimed, "Oh shit, fuck." So, Hamilton's use of deadly force, according to the lawsuit, was objectively unreasonable because Joseph was unarmed, sitting in a chair approximately 15 feet away, made no verbal or physical threats to the defendant or others, and presented no immediate danger to defendant Hamilton or others. Take a look at the footage, then we'll go through it.
Come on out with your hands up.
Hands up!
Good job.
He'll bite you. Greensboro Police, you in there? Make yourself known. Come on out with your hands up or I'm going to send my dog in there. He'll bite you. Come on out with your hands up. Watch him, Hoyt. Hoyt. Come on out. Hey, listen to me. Come on out. I'm getting ready to put the dog in there. Still it. Still it. Oh, I'm coming.
Then, after the shooting, as the body cam continues to record, you can hear Officer Hamilton say to his coworkers, presumably, "I saw something in his hands." Now, perhaps he was talking in reality to the body cam. So, is this the beginning of an attempt to manufacture a justification for a shooting where it appears that there was no justification? Take a look at this.
I saw something in his hand. Come here. I saw something in his hand.
So the basic law with police shootings basically comes down to self-defense. An officer may use deadly force when the officer has probable cause to believe that the suspect poses a threat of serious physical harm either to that officer or to anyone else. That's Tennessee versus Garner, United States Supreme Court, 1985. So it's not very complicated. What knowledge or information was that shooting police officer presented with that may have caused him to believe that there was an imminent threat of serious bodily harm to either himself or anyone else? Well, there's the information about why they were called there. Okay, there's an unknown guy trying to get in a house, allegedly, who is subsequently cornered in some sort of shed or garage. All right, do we know anything about this guy? Do we have reason to suspect that he's some sort of serial killer? Did the police officer hear via the 911 dispatcher that this guy may be armed, or he was carrying a gun, or had made some sort of threat to harm somebody? Well, I haven't heard anything about that. That would be good to know. Not knowing if that is present, we have to speculate that it's not. So, suspicious person call, guy in a garage, it's dark, he releases his dog on him, and all of a sudden there's a shot. I don't think as a police officer, you don't want to have just shot somebody unless that person is armed. It's always a bad idea to have shot somebody who's unarmed, because then you have to articulate facts that even though the person was unarmed, they were an imminent threat of serious bodily harm to somebody because of X, Y, and Z. And that hopefully is like he was an escaped convict who has already strangled somebody to death or something like that. Here, it sounds like they didn't really know this guy from Adam, just a suspicious person call. They found him. There was no indication on the body cam that the guy was making any threats. It would basically have to come down to kind of what you saw, is that the officer maybe going through his mind after the shooting that I must have seen something in his hand. Didn't I see something in his hand? And that wouldn't be the first time that that's happened. You may watch one of my earlier videos where you actually see a supposedly investigating police officer come up to the shooting police officer and say, by the way, we found some guns inside the doorway, hint, hint. And also, don't make a statement, go home and think about it first. So it really doesn't look good with the dash cam footage as far as whether or not it was unjustified. Apparently, the state of North Carolina came to that same conclusion. So there was a manslaughter indictment. Now, as far as the pending civil case, that sometimes that's a bad thing, because if the guy committed a crime, the insurance company isn't necessarily going to pay for it. And in federal civil rights lawsuits, there's no automatic liability for the employer. So they can just throw the defendant police officer under the bus and not pay. You could get a $10 million judgment against them, and they're not going to pay it. And the guy doesn't have $10 million. So whatever money he had already went to his criminal defense lawyer. So that's the reason you'll see other, what are called Monell claims, like pattern or practice excessive force allegations, or negligent supervision and training, things like that. And those claims were all made in this case. So that's the footage that just came out. Those are my thoughts on them, and hopefully I'll follow along and be able to do an update video at some point to report on what happened.